this is Pomerac Child with a very special video. Today is exactly 1 year since I've owned this Honda SH50 scooter. Basically, I'm going to be going through everything I've changed on the bike and all of the costs and repairs that I have done to it. These are still quite popular, and these are still on British roads and to some extent international roads as well. So there are some people out there who still own these bikes, and even if you are riding the bike for the first time, specifically a 49cc scooter like me, you might benefit from this video. Truth be told, my insurance on my mum's car ran out in July this year, so since then it's just been my scooter and I, and if I want to drive on my mum's car I'd have to have temporary insurance. But this has been my only vehicle for the last year and it's served me really well, and basically I'm going to make this video to show you my experience and what this bike has done for me in the past year. In the last video I said I tried to undo this to see if I can put some more brake fluid in there and see if I can change it as well, but unfortunately it got so old that I rounded the screw, which is a little bit of a shame, but I'll find a way to undo that. Now, this is a very difficult story because I phoned up pretty much every Honda parts dealer in the southwest to see if they could find this small piece. Now, the trouble is, because this model has been discontinued for quite a long time, they don't make parts for this anymore. So it was very difficult to get this specific part. So I tried and tried. I couldn't even find anywhere on eBay that would sell this part. So I improvised. I took the measurements for this specific part and I compared them to other brake fluid reservoirs. I couldn't use a generic universal one because the parts, they were a different size. But I did manage to find a brake fluid reservoir cap that matched a Honda PCX 125 and Honda Monkey Bike, which were exactly the same size as this. So I managed to get a PCX 125 brake fluid cover to put on this bike, and the holes were in exactly the same place as well, so I didn't have to worry about screws or anything else. But as it turns out, these screws, they were not your conventional hex heads, so I rounded them as well. So I got myself a little Dremel and I cut myself two long slits, as it were, so I can just undo them and tighten them with a flathead screwdriver. So that was the first thing I did. And the reservoir cover, that cost me £13.19. So that was the first thing I did to the bike. Next up was the air filter. Now, I changed it just after Christmas, and it was a good thing I did as well, because the original one had broken into so many little pieces. It was just better off not having an air filter at all. So I got myself a Malossi one. That cost me £6.52, and I just gave it a bit of a clean yesterday, as a matter of fact, and it's still serving me well to this day. Then there was the spark plug. Again, NGK spark plugs, Nippon Denso spark plugs. They are absurdly cheap for these small 49cc machines. I managed to get, it was a BR something code. I'll put the code for the appropriate spark plug for this machine on screen now. That cost me £3.87 off eBay. So again, very cheap, cheap and cheerful. That's what we like on these bikes. Then in March, I decided that the tyres needed to be replaced. The original tyres on this bike, I managed to find the date of when the tyres were manufactured. They were actually manufactured in 2000 and 2001 for the front and rear respectively. So even though they were 20 years old and they were still fine, they had plenty of tread and they were still holding air really well, I couldn't take the risk. I thought it would be much safer and much more efficient for my fuel if I just replaced the tyres. Front and rear tyres, they are both Continental Contigo tyres, and total they cost me £95 with the fitting included. So that was a good deal, and I got to admit they look a lot more better than the originals. The next thing I did was the headlight bulb. Now that just stopped working for some reason. In the process, because the plastic was so old and so brittle, when I took this off, it actually cracked, hence why there is tape on the bottom of this unit, but I would have told you that in the other video. Go watch it. So just the bulb, £4.90. Any generic bulb will work in there, but just double check the wattage and the attachments anyway before you change it. This part of the video gets interesting because at the very start of July, someone had actually gone into the back of my bike, which had caused the plastic to split. The indicators were hanging off, the number plate had gone completely, and it was apparent that work had to be done. I can't forgive myself for doing this, but I allowed myself to be fobbed off. I just took £60 from the person and then we sent them on the way. We didn't go through the insurance because, to be fair, it was a slow crash. We were around about... I thought I was going to go forward, but I saw a bus come, so I decided, no, I'm going to wait. And then the person went behind me and had just ruined the back bumper. It just gone completely. So there were some repairs that I did myself, and I decided not to go to a garage because I could have just done it at home. To get a new number plate, that cost me £14.74. I had to get the new rear bumper, which cost me £18.99. These indicators from Halfords, which luckily had the same attachment as the original ones, the indicators cost me £19.99. Then I just decided I need some miscellaneous nuts and bolts to tighten the fairings and the plastic, and that cost me £4.50. So the moral of the story is, don't go through the same hassle as I did. I can't forgive myself for not going through the insurance, but the main reason I didn't want to go through the insurance is because it looked fixable, and I was lucky that I was able to fix it to a relatively good standard. And if I went through the insurance, it most likely would have been written off anyway because of its age. So I decided not to bother with the insurance, and I was just happy with the cash sum. And finally, the last thing I've had to do on the bike is get the rear brake shoes replaced. They're pretty much at the end of their life and they need to be changed. The brake shoes from eBay cost £9.25. Labour isn't included in that price. There is a family friend who will be changing them on, and I just need to arrange it with them to get the brakes sorted. And that is everything, all of the repairs and their associated costs, what I've had done to the bike so far. This scooter, in terms of fuel efficiency, has served me really well. Since I've owned this, the average MPG is 76.08 miles per gallon. If you compare that with my old Suzuki Alto, you only got around 48, 49 miles a gallon. And the annual fuel cost was £322.92 on just this scooter. In addition to annual fuel costs, because this is a two-stroke machine, I've also had to pay for two-stroke oil and gear oil as well. For this whole year, I have spent £17.48 on two-stroke oil and £6.99 on gear oil for 1 year. I had some spare two-stroke oil before, and if you look on Facebook, Gumtree and some marketplaces, you'll find that people have old bottles of two-stroke and gear oil that they are happy to give away. The annual insurance cost is £109. That's just for the year. I decided not to spread it, I'll just pay that all in one. It would have been £79 for the year if I decided not to have breakdown cover, so it's a really cheap machine to insure. From the 1st of September 2021, the British government required that all petrol sold at petrol stations in the United Kingdom had to contain 10% ethanol. There is a big problem with this because a lot of vehicles do not run on E10 fuel, and this is included, not because of its age, because it's a two-stroke, and if you've got a two-stroke or an older vehicle, then this could be a problem, because that would mean that you'd have to go back to the traditional petrol, E5, which is the supreme stuff that you get at some fancy petrol stations, and you'd have to pay more for every time you fill up. On the government website,
for Honda motorcycles, it says all Honda motorcycles and mopeds produced for the EU market since 1993 can use ethanol-blended gasoline up to 10%, although carburetor-equipped models could experience poor drivability in cold weather conditions. Now, this scooter was registered and manufactured in 1998, so according to the government, this is okay. However, what the government website didn't tell me was that it could affect two-strokes, and I had to find that out through other means. And I'm really disappointed at the government for not pointing this out to people, because there are some people who drive two-strokes and just thinking, oh, if it's 10%, it should be fine. They really should highlight this to them, because there are some people who wouldn't know this information. I should point out to you that E10 has the potential to damage fuel lines and other parts of the fuel system, and if you have a carburetor, it could damage that as well. Also, ethanol is hydrophilic, which means it attracts water, and water in an engine is big trouble. Ethanol is also a detergent, so it strips oil from surfaces, so it prevents efficient lubrication, and if you're in a two-stroke engine where the oil and the petrol mix together, you can see why that is a big problem. Ethanol is less efficient as well. However, ethanol is clean and it is renewable. According to some sources, ethanol is cheaper to produce and sell than conventional petrol, but personally, I haven't seen a difference. And we've been using E5, that's had ethanol content in fuel for a long time anyway, so jumping up to 10% doesn't seem too much of a difference. And if you wanted to, you could practically, if you had the resources, separate the ethanol yourself, and there is a good video on how to do that I've put in the description of this video, but it is your choice. You can either go for a bit of a cleaner burning one, or a more expensive yet proven to work one. So, in the last 12 months, I've done 4,233 miles, and the mileage now is 23,116 miles on the clock. So if you're looking for a reliable, cheap, efficient machine, it's not going to get you fast. These are all limited to 30 miles an hour by the letter of the law, so you're not going to be going on a motorway with this. However, this will give you a lot of pleasure to ride, and this will be very, very valuable if you kept it longer and longer. This is ex-Royal Mail as well, so I've had so many stories with people. I've had conversations telling people about the history of this bike. I've been to quite a few places. I've been to Oxfordshire, I've been to the south of Wiltshire quite a lot of times on this. I've been towards Avon and Somerset, and I've also been to Gloucestershire a few times as well. So they are very reliable. They will get you to where you want to go. They trundle along, they don't conk out, they're just fantastic to ride. And apart from the parts being extremely difficult to source, the parts are very difficult and they can get very expensive to obtain. This is a solid, reliable scooter. Not only will it get you from A to B, it will have a potential to get you to C as well. If you enjoy this video, please sure to like and subscribe for more content, and I'll make more of this in the future. Until then, thanks for watching.